On the Chromebook again, so if the color's weird, I don't know. Sometimes it's great, sometimes not. Washed my hair so it's still wet. But we ain't worried about any of that because we're here to read. If women are brave, some men are as tender and self sacrificing as women. I know one who in the night slipped his share of food into a girl's pocket, though starving himself, and sat for hours rocking a sick man in his arms that he might get a little sleep. No, love, I will tell, and you must let me, cried Mary, holding in both her own the hand he laid on her lips to silence her. Only did my duty. If that torment had lasted much longer, I might have been as bad as poor Barry and the boatswain. Wasn't that an awful night? And Emil shuddered as he recalled it. I may be reading. Seems like I remember some of this. Oh well. Don't think of it, dear. Tell about the happy days on the Urania when Papa grew better and we were all safe and homeward bound, said Mary with a trusting look and comforting touch, which seemed to banish the dark and recall the bright side of that terrible experience. Emil cheered up at once and, sitting with his arm about his dear lass in true sailor fashion, told the happy ending of the tale. Such a jolly old time as we had at Hamburg. Uncle Herman couldn't do enough for the captain, and while Mama took care of him and Mary looked after me, I had to go into dock for repairs. Fire hurt my eyes, and watching for a sail and want of sleep made 'em as hazy as a London fog. She was pilot and brought me in all right, you see, only I couldn't part company, so she came aboard as first mate, and I'm bound straight for glory now. Hush, that's silly, dear, whispered Mary, trying in her turn to stop him with English shyness about tender topics. But he took the soft hand in his and, proudly surveying the one ring it wore, went on with the air of an admiral aboard his flagship. The captain proposed waiting a spell, but I told him we weren't like to see any rougher weather than we'd pulled through together, and if we didn't know one another after such a year as this, we never should. I was sure I wouldn't be worth my pay without this hand on the wheel. So I had my way, and my brave little woman has shipped for the long voyage, God bless her. Shall you really sail with him? Asked Daisy, admiring her courage but shrinking with cat-like horror from the water. I'm not afraid, answered Mary with a loyal smile. I've proved my captain in fair weather and in foul, and if he is ever wrecked again, I'd rather be with him than waiting and watching ashore. A true woman and a born sailor's wife. You are a happy man, Emil, and I'm sure this trip will be a prosperous one, cried Mrs. Joe, delighted with the briny flavor of this courtship. Oh, my dear boy, I always felt you'd come back, and when everyone else despaired, I never gave up, but insisted you were clinging to the maintop jib somewhere on that dreadful sea. And Mrs. Joe illustrated her faith by grasping Emil with a truly picadin gesture. Of course I was, answered Emil heartily, and my main-top jib in this case was the thought of what you and Uncle said to me. That kept me up, and among the million thoughts that came to me during those long nights, none was clearer than the idea of the red strand. You remember English Navy and all that? I liked the notion and resolved that if a bit of my cable was left afloat, the red stripe should be there. And it was, my dear, it was. Captain Hardy testifies to that. And here is your reward. And Mrs. Joe kissed Mary with a maternal tenderness, which betrayed that she liked the English rose better than the blue-eyed German Kornblumen, sweet and modest though it was. Emil surveyed the little ceremony with complacency, saying as he looked about the room which he never thought to see again, odd, isn't it? How clearly trifles come back to one in times of danger, As we floated there, half starved and in despair, I used to think I heard the bells ringing here, and Ted tramping downstairs, and you calling, "Boys, boys, it's time to get up." I actually smelt the coffee we used to have, and one night I nearly cried when I woke from a dream of Asia's ginger cookies. I declare it was one of the bitterest disappointments of my life to face hunger with that spicy smell in my nostrils. "If you've got any, do give me one." A pitiful murmur broke from all the aunts and uncles, and Emil was at once borne away to feast on the desired cookies, a supply always being on hand. Mrs. Joe and her sister joined the other group, glad to hear what Franz was saying about Nat. The minute I saw how thin and shabby he was, I knew that something was wrong, but he made light of it and was so happy over our visit news that I left him off with a brief confession and went to Professor Beargarten and Bergman. From them I learned the whole story of his spending more money than he ought and trying to atone for it by unnecessary work and sacrifice. Baumgarten thought it would do him good, so kept his secret till I came. It did him good, and he's paid his debts and earned his bread by the sweat of his brow, like an honest fellow. I like that much in Nat. It's, as I said, a lesson, and he learns it well. He proves himself a man, and has desired the place Bergman offers him," said Mr. Bear, looking well pleased as Franz added some facts already recorded. "I told you, Meg, that he had good stuff in him, and love for Daisy would keep him straight. Dear lad, I wish I had him here this moment," cried Mrs. Joe, forgetting in delight the doubts and anxieties which had troubled her for months past. "I'm very glad, and suppose I shall give in as I always do, especially now that the epidemic rages so among us. You and Emil have set all their heads in a ferment, and Josie will be demanding a lover before I can turn round," answered Mrs. Meg in a tone of despair. But her sister saw that she was touched by Nat's trials, and hastened to add the triumphs, and the victory might be complete, for success is always charming. "This offer of Herr Bergman is a good one, isn't it?" she asked, though Mr. Lorry had already satisfied her on that point when Nat's letter brought the news. "Very fine in every way. Nat will get capital drill in Bachmeister's orchestra. See London in a delightful way, and if he suits, come home with them. Come home with them. Well started among the violins. No great honor, but a sure thing and a step up. I congratulated him, and he was very jolly over it, saying like the true lover he is. Tell Daisy, be sure and tell her all about it. I'll leave that to you, Aunt Meg, and you can also break it gently to her that the old boy had a fine blonde beard, very becoming, adds his weak mouth, and gives a noble air to his big eyes, and Mendelssohnian brow, as a gushing girl called it. Ludmilla has a photo of it for you." This amused them, and they listened to many other interesting bits of news which kind Franz, even in his own happiness, had not forgotten to remember for his friend's sake. He talked so well and painted Nat's patient and pathetic shifts so vividly that Mrs. Meg was half won, though if she had learned of the Mina episode and the fiddling in beer gardens and streets, she might not have relented so soon. She stored up all she heard, however, and womanlike promised herself a delicious talk with Daisy, in which she would allow herself to melt by degrees, and perhaps change the doubtful we shall see to a cordial He has done well. Be happy, dear. In the midst of this agreeable chat, the sudden striking of a clock recalled Mrs. Joe from romance to reality, and she exclaimed with a clutch at her crippling pins. Crimping pins. My blessed people, you must eat and rest. I must dress, or receive in this disgraceful rig. Meg, will you take Ludmilla and Mary upstairs and see to them? Franz knows the way to the dining room. Fritz, come with me and be made tidy, for what with heat and emotion, we are both perfect wrecks. And that's the end of chapter 18. And let me look ahead. The next chapter's 19, of course, and it's called White Roses. I think we're about done. Let's see if this is the last chapter or if there's a 20. And again, not that I don't like this book. I think it's been great. But I'm ready to be done with it. So I can not have to mark for children, which maybe I wouldn't have had to, but erring on the safe side. I would rather do that since they were actually marked as children's books. Not that children can't read Pride and Prejudice and all the other things I'm coming up on, but let's see. Well, there's more chapters than I thought. Should have looked for the table of contents. I meant to check this out off camera, but then I forget. Okay, we're up to 22 chapters. I thought maybe it'd only have 20, and they're pretty lengthy too. Pretty doggone lengthy. Okay. I think it has 22 chapters, and we will be on, what did I say, 18? Think that's right. Yep. Okay. Have a wonderful day. Be sweet. Don't be ugly. And I hope to see you live at 5 in just 2 hours. Of course, who knows how long it'll take for this to upload. So it'll be a little less than that. Okay. Talk to you later. Love you bunches. Bye-bye.